And we're live, and today we're talking about assumptions.
The first rule of Incite Club is you don't talk about Incite Club. You do Incite Club. The second rule of Incite Club is the only assumptions we make about one another are that we all want happiness and we all want to avoid suffering. The third rule of Incite Club is you check all your other assumptions at the door. We hope these conversations will bring you insights that incite you to action. Welcome to Incite Club. Welcome back to Incite Club. Right before we started recording, we were both talking about assumptions we've been making. So it just seems like a good reminder that checking our assumptions at the door is an ongoing practice. It's an ongoing process. So we're again here talking about assumptions. And we were like, can we talk about assumptions again? That's what we're always talking about. It's the theme of this podcast. It's the reason we started this podcast. It's because being a human being means we're constantly making assumptions. And Lace and I are just really drawn to, committed to continuing to look at them and asking, is that true? Is something else more supportive true? So here we are again.
Yeah. And it's so humbling as well to always check. Actually, I was wrong about that.
I was wrong about it, and it wasn't like I did my research or I investigated first and then I was wrong because I missed something. It was like I was wrong because I just made this assumption coming out the door.
It's a human thing as well that we are, even if we don't think we are great storytellers, our mind is, and it's often creating stories. And sometimes those stories are not that supportive. Sometimes we create stories that create division and struggle and more trouble than it would be if we just did the thing that maybe it's a little bit scary sometimes. And then instead, we protect ourselves, creating a story that something is already not possible or different than what we wanted, and the world's against us, and all these things.
Yeah, we're always telling stories. This is the TED Talk I'm working on, by the way. but we are 100% always telling stories. The amount of raw data that's coming in at us all the time would be overwhelming. And then you layer on top of that the way our senses actually work. Like, we put so much stake in seeing, right? We have phrases like I'll believe it when I see it, and we're like I'll when I see it with my own eyes. We are not seeing reality. We have eyes that are constructed in a certain way that's different from how insect eyes are, or cat eyes, or any other animal, really. Maybe not any other, but there are different ways that eyes work. Our eyes do one particular thing. The image gets interpreted to begin with, right? So it's already not raw data. And then our brain goes, well, ain't nobody got time to look at each individual thing. So we put things in categories. We're like, okay, that's a person, that's a chair, that's that's a person wearing a hat. So probably it's, and like all the associations with people wearing a hat come in. Like, there's no such thing as an unfiltered experience of reality for human beings. Maybe for angels, I don't know. But for human beings, there's no such thing as an unfiltered experience of reality. And every time we tell a story, it's based on, so we have to interpret, we do these stories, it's based on our past experience, the mood we're in, everything is storytelling.
Yeah. And we are able to create supportive stories and not so supportive stories. What Megan is saying, like, if you think like, oh, of course I see reality, and no, we already only see a part of the light spectrum. We don't hear everything in reality because we only hear a part of the sound spectrum as well. So it will always be just a fraction, and not only it is a fraction, we also only can get a fraction of the fraction that we actually consciously take in. The other part is stored in the subconscious, and the subconscious is greatest in putting everything together and creating a new story with just the cues.
One of my favorite authors is Douglas Adams, who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And in one of the books in that series, there's a scene where these characters have kind of like traveled through a rift in time and space, and they've ended up in a sporting arena in England. And this spaceship lands, and they're the only ones who see it. And one character says to the other, like, how come nobody else sees that? And he's like, oh, people's brains block it out. He calls it like somebody else's problem. Oh, that's an SEP, a somebody else's problem. And he's poking fun at something that is absolutely true, which is if it doesn't make sense in my current understanding of, like, in the context of the book, even though these characters travel through space travel is not a known thing, right? So people see a spaceship and they're just like, whoop, nope. they blank it out of their reality. And that's what we do. If I don't have a way to fit it into something that I already think is true, or a story that I'm comfortable with, just cognitive dissonance. We just go, nope, delete it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
take us through how assumptions were coming up for you.
For me, I always feel like it's those thoughts that when we don't take action on something, we create something else in part of in it. And something that I had envisioned didn't come up the way I was planning, so I thought it then maybe it means that it's not here. But you know that I'm always looking for signs. The moment I got the message about something that wasn't going to work that way and was about putting together a concert, by the way, uh, the moment was 15:15, so 3:15 p.m. But in the time that the way it was for me, it was 15:15. I was like, okay. And I had already the story in my mind that we're going to have to pay for the venue, and it's not even worth trying. Maybe we just do something on the street with the band and so on. But then I thought, okay, just you have the contact, just try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You can still do it by yourself. And then I message the person that I got the contact from, and they not only accepted, but it could be the day that we wanted, and uh, so we're doing a partnership, and the venue gets the food and beverage, and we get the tickets, and we're able to put together something in the way that we wanted, um, with a partnership. Well, I was assuming that, oh no, that won't be possible because that's not how it works. But it worked because I trusted that, yeah, if you got the sign, probably that's the way to go.
Ooh. Okay. There's so much, like, I'm getting like full body chills from you saying that, because the things that are coming together for me are, um, we don't believe what we see what we believe, right?
Mhm.
Like, I expect things to be a certain way, so I don't see that spaceship. I expect things to be a certain way, and so I'm looking for that, and then I'm only taking evidence. Like, other things might happen, but I'm going, well, those are the outliers, right? So I'm only taking in the evidence. So I'm continually re-entrenching that story, and my assumptions are getting stronger and stronger, and I'm saying, see, they really are true. And what you just said is pointing me toward an easy way to bust out of that default thinking pattern is to receive divine signs.
Hmm.
So a divine sign. I'm, man, the last few months for me, I'm seeing 1111 and 111 everywhere. Like I'll walk into the kitchen and the clock happens to be 1:11, or I always keep looking at, I'll be immersed in work and I look up at my computer screen and it's 11:11 and I'm like, okay, I don't know what the message is, that's a beautiful and simple way to invite ourselves to interrupt the, like, because it sounds like that's what allowed you to question the assumption, was going, I see 15:15, so that's my reminder. I don't know all of reality. There's a higher wisdom here. But what
Yeah.
a simple and beautiful technology.
Yeah. And I love that you picked that up because I wasn't thinking of that, but that makes so much sense because this is us allowing as well ourselves to be more present and pay more attention instead of drifting into our thoughts. If we're not present and paying attention to what's happening, even those small things like the repeated numbers and so on, we might pick up only on the repeated thoughts. Like, for example, in the moment I got that message 15:15 at 15:15, the message was saying, I won't, from someone else, I won't be able to do this at this day. It was someone else that I wanted to do the partnership with, and it said try to get in contact with this person, and I was already thinking, no, that won't work. But yet, instead of, I had that thought, but if I just focus on that thought, I wouldn't even see that it was 15:15.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, this is a no, but it might be just a redirection for something even better.
Yes. So yeah, the technology, the seeing numbers on the clock or wherever it um, is just an invitation back into presence. Is that what you're saying?
Back in presence, and also the need for us to be present instead of allow the repeated thoughts to lead us, because what creates our reality is our repeated thoughts, and most of the thoughts that we think in a day are the same thoughts from yesterday and from yesterday and from yesterday. And if we don't catch ourselves in the ones that are not supportive and are not creating the reality that we want to create, we're going to be creating a worse and worse reality every day.
Yeah. This is making me want to reincorporate into my day the Byron Katie practice of, is it true?
Yeah.
The series of questions. Is it true? Can I 100% absolutely universally know that it's true? And then it's how, gosh, I'm forgetting the sequence. Maybe it's how am I behaving when I think this is true? And then you do the turnaround. And then how would I be behaving if I believed that was true?
Yeah.
I think
And
that's the sequence. Yeah.
that's so good. And I actually caught myself thinking, even like, there are times where I catch myself having the thoughts that I know are not supportive, and I still do it. And I feel like it's so similar to like when I ate something and I'm full already, but I know that I shouldn't get the another bite, and I feel like, oh yeah, I caught myself, but I know I'm still gonna get another bite. I know I'm doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
We do
I
this with thoughts all the time.
last night I was kitty trapped. I was sitting on my couch and my cat was on my lap and I had my phone, and I was very proud of myself because I was like, oh, I can watch this Zoom call that I couldn't attend live instead of just sitting there mindlessly scrolling. So I just watched the Zoom call, and then my cat got off my lap and I went, oh, great. Now I can get up and go start getting ready for bed because it's not too late. No, do you know what I did? I sat there for 45 minutes and scrolled on Instagram. And as I was doing it, I was like, what am I doing? Oh my God, what am I doing? And then, I didn't go to bed at the early time I wanted. I'm like, wow. And it is that same thing of like, I'm watching myself do the bad idea.
Yeah.
What is going on?
That well, I feel better that I'm not the only one. Probably the others does it as well. The worst part about this is we know.
No. Yeah. I mean, when people say when you know better, you do better, I'm like, maybe you. When I know better, I do the same thing and just feel worse about it. I need that t-shirt.
Yes.
Oh. Uh,
Ah.
I was thinking this morning. I try to give myself like a pep talk before I go into addiction meditation, because I find it actually is more effective. Otherwise, I find myself doing addiction meditation and ruminating. And then I'm like, oh crap, I'm doing the practice, I'm doing the Kundalini Kriya that is for helping me break these patterns of thought. But instead of doing it and fully participating, I'm just doing the patterns of thought. So sometimes it helps. I like shake and I give myself a pep talk. And it's just like this inspired, I pretend I'm teaching myself a Kundalini class. And this
Mm,
morning I was like, oh, I've often had the thought, our thought patterns, our belief patterns, our behavior patterns. It's like a rut
mm,
in a road, and I have a really visceral connection with that because moving cross country, towing a trailer behind a tiny little car. I was on a mountain road, and the trucks that drive on that road have worn these ruts, and they're just these deep, deep, you know, lines in the road, and my car was stuck in those ruts but then bumped out, like the trailer bumped out, and the car ended up like fishtailing with the trailer, and we were in the middle of the highway. I was with my sister, and it was a terrifying experience, and it was because we were stuck in the rut, but then we got out of the rut because it wasn't the it was the size of a truck, not the size of my car. So I have a really visceral like sense of what it's like to be coming out of a rut, and it actually feels scary. And that gave me this
mm.
insight this morning. Even though we have all these expressions like I'm stuck in a rut and we know that's not where we want to be, coming out of the rut feels like you're it's scary. If it's like it feels like we're off track. I was like, that's really helpful. Even though intellectually I know that these patterns, these habits, these behaviors, these addictions to thoughts and actions, like sitting and scrolling on my phone when I want to be going to bed, even though I'm consciously aware, I'm only doing that because I've done it so many times before. I'm not doing that because I want to do it. Coming out of it feels hella scary. Feels like I'm off track.
Because it is a little bit of the fear of the unknown, but also it gets. I feel like even if an uncomfortable situation gets comfortable and it's something that we're used to that amount of pressure,
Yeah.
and decompressing from it, getting free from it, it's just like I don't know what to do now.
I don't know what to do. Who am I? And then, the fear of freedom of, I sometimes look at my behaviors like not going to bed early. The other night I went to bed really early and I woke up feeling so refreshed. I was like, I wish I could start every day like this. And then I
Yeah.
watch myself kind of intentionally stay up later. It's not like there's something I need to be doing. Um, but I sometimes look at that behavior and go, is that me terrified of how powerful and magical I could be if I were firing on all cylinders, if I were using my full resources? I
Yeah.
mean, I find ways to deplete my energy. I find ways to deplete my finances. I'm really skilled at operating in this level where I'm not in emergency mode. I'm okay. I'm not sleep deprived. I'm not having like severe health issues because I'm not getting enough sleep or I'm not eating properly, right? But I managed to stay like right in this space of getting by
Yeah.
and not really thriving in lots of areas of my life. I'm like, I think I'm terrified. I think I'm absolutely shit my pants terrified of how much impact I could make in the world if I were using all of my resources.
I believe most of us are afraid of how much power we can have. Yes. And also that if we are that powerful, we are responsible for what we're creating. And that responsibility can be scary as hell as well.
Yeah.
Because just like if we're blaming, oh, I can't do this because of this person or that thing or whatever we put out, then it's not my responsibility.
Yeah. I didn't do a great job because I didn't get enough sleep last night.
Yeah, there's
You
always
didn't
one.
see me at my best. You didn't know this is not the best I can do.
Yeah, I haven't tried that hard.
Yes. Oh, that's
But if we
been
put all our stakes into something and then it doesn't work, then it feels like true failure. Even though we know that there's no failure until you give up, you actually can try, get up and try again, and try again, and try again.
yeah. Man, I was hit this morning with a realization about an area in my life where I've gained mastery. And I was like, "Oh, that is it's interesting because it happened in somebody else's sphere." So for the last 3 years, I've been a copy coach in a business coaching program where I review people's copy. And that program, or there are multiple programs, but it's one coach. It's remained largely the same. And my role in it, or like the way I do reviews, has remained largely the same. And I can see how freaking good I've gotten at it in 3 years. I came in with some skills and with a lot of intuition around it. And now when I do a review, I'm like, I'm just really nailing this. I'm really and what why that's interesting to me is because in my own spheres of influence, I've not allowed myself to have mastery. I have not allowed myself to do something again and again and again and again and again um, in the same way. I do similar things, but I'm always changing and always tweaking and always reinventing. And I went, oh, isn't that interesting? I am capable of mastery. I didn't know I was capable of mastery. Some part of me was kind of like, maybe I just maybe I just like can't ever reach that level with something. I'm like, no, I can absolutely reach a level of mastery. And it was allowed to happen because it was in somebody else's container where they weren't making changes, right? They're just like, we have new clients, we might change the sequence of things, we will whatever. But Megan, what you're doing is working, so just keep doing it. I'm like, huh. Eh, I lost my train of thought completely now. But I found it fascinating to see that somebody else would allow me to thrive and use all of my best resources and really get good at something, right?
Yeah.
And then when I'm in control, I go, no, we better start over. We better do this. We better do that. We better do that. We better do that.
Mm.
Um, I guess just kind of speaking to that fear of my own light and my own greatness. Yeah.
Yeah, that shows a little bit of how you mentioned the container, but like the limitation helps us grow in one particular thing as well. Because if we can do anything, we just jump from one thing to the other. But if we are like, okay, this is the only thing that I can focus on here,
Yeah.
then and we can allow ourselves to create limitations that we choose
Yeah.
and not see them as like, I can't do this. No, I'm choosing to focus on those things. And I feel like one of the only reasons why we don't do this, it's not because we don't want to be limited, but it's because that means changing our identity in some way, like you were saying, with changing a behavior, changing whatever you're going to change. We fear change, and even people who like change fear change, and that can be pretty complicated. If we don't catch ourselves and really choose, like, I'm going to do this, we're going to keep facing the same.
So help me see, help me. I feel like I'm missing a piece, the connection between continuing to do something and like or giving ourselves a container where we could thrive because we're like, I'm going to narrow my focus and I'm going to do this one thing. You were connecting that to a change in our identity, or did I misunderstand?
Yes. So changing anything will change our identity. For example, if we think of ourselves, giving a very simple example, if we think of ourselves as a night owl, and then you choose, oh, no, I'm gonna start getting up really early because I'm gonna be able to use my energy in the day much better. My identity as a night owl is being threatened in here.
Yeah.
Even what, like, I think I shared with you at some point this, when I decided I wasn't going to eat um, especially flour, but mostly highly processed carbs
Mhm.
and sugar and so on. A long time ago, it's been more than, well, I think it's 4 years now. I still eat some. Not I still eat. Sometimes now I allow myself to eat because I already made the change in identity. But when I started, I really had to go like, no, I'm not doing this anymore,
Yeah.
and because I knew if I kept that in some way, it would be easy to slip back. And one of the big things that I challenged in there was my identity as an Brazilian Italian, because we eat pasta. I made bread, and all of those things were like, I'm giving up a
Mm.
part of who I thought I was because I've done these things.
Mm. Yeah. So choosing that new direction and creating that container to thrive is, I'm leaving some parts of me behind. And for me, there's a whole feeling of, I think this is, a challenge when it comes to mastery for me. Um, when I'll be like, okay, yes, I'm going to go all in on this and I really want to master this. And then I'll see somebody else doing one of the things that I like doing. I go, no, but I want that. And it reminds me of when we were kids, uh, my sister and I were kind of obsessed with having garage sales. I don't know why. But, like, we'd go through our rooms and we'd get up stuff and, put it on the front lawn and, like a garage sale. And you'd think you were okay getting rid of a toy or whatever it was. And then a neighbor kid would come over and go like, "Oh, what's this? Oh, this is really cool." And all of a sudden you feel like, "Hey, wait a minute. I really still want that." Right? It's like this very, very infantile kind of feeling. Like, I didn't want it a minute ago, but now I see somebody else playing with it. I'm like, "Well, that's mine and I want that."
It was mine.
So so I get that feeling when I see somebody going all in on an identity and
Mhm.
having mastery, and I go, well, I'm multi-passionate and that's one of the things I wanted to do, but I was going to say, well, now I'm all in on this so I can really get good at it. But hey, you're you're playing with that toy over there. And gosh, it's such a that is such an unhelpful way of relating. um and I wonder what it would be like if I could separate out identity. So I'll tell you the story of the email I got this morning. A client I worked with, 5 or so years back, um, reached out and said like, "Hey, I would like to connect you with somebody who's working on a book." Awesome. That's definitely something I do. But the email started with, "Oh, I just checked out your website and I see now you're a writing coach. That's great. How's that going?" And in my mind, I was like, "I've been a writing coach since 2006. What are you?" And and she didn't have a misconception about what I could help somebody with. Like, she wants to send me a referral who is absolutely somebody I can help. But it was so interesting to me how the title got my panties all in a wad. And me feeling like, well, I'm not being seen in the way I should. So even when it's not at a level of, it's not like somebody goes, "Oh, Megan, you plant gardens." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? That's not what I do." Like, you're completely missing me or my specialty, right? Um, it wasn't even about the doing, it was just about the title. I thought, how
Mm.
sensitive I am to needing, wanting, being frustrated about being seen with the right title, with the right words.
I'm curious now, what was the thing that she thought you were before?
I don't know.
Mm, that's even more that's even more interesting because you mentioned that this was an assumption as well. You don't even know what assumption the women had before.
Yeah, I don't even know what it was, but I'm just, I was choosing to get all like, and frustrated and annoyed and butthurt about it not being the title I give myself.
Yeah. Mm,
and
interesting.
and that's tied up with, it's fascinating to like observe and see the layers. So one of the layers I know, I'm sure there are a lot more in there, but one of the layers I know is that I'm hypersensitive around people excluding me. So part of my brain is going like, you think I just became a writing coach, so that means you don't think I'm like in the group of people who really has the right to call herself a writing coach. And so it feels like exclusion.
Mm,
Like you think I, just came to this and I'm not, I don't have the street cred. Um, and that's, ultimately really that's all of the pains we're feeling, I think, connect back to a sense of not being connected or feeling excluded or feeling like we're not going to be loved. You know, humans are pretty simple.
yeah. We want very simple things. I don't know why we have to complicate things. Like the thing that you said in the beginning of the in the opening of this podcast, and I don't remember exactly the words, but we want to be loved, and what was the other thing? Uh,
Oh, and not suffer.
not
Yeah, we
suffer.
want to avoid suffering and
And
I
when we
mean,
have that, we of course we want to create something. We want to do something good and hopefully be recognized for it.
yeah, that's the part that's really in my like stuck in my brain right now is why is it so important to feel like I'm being recognized? Because again, it wasn't the practical thing. She wants to send me a referral who's a great referral. Why is it so important to me to be seen in a certain way and to have certain words attached to me?
Hmm.
And how can I be less obsessed with that?
I'm bringing this up because I actually have right in front of me, since I've heard this for the first time, posted saying aim for growth, not validation. Because
Mm.
that resonated with me so much. Because yes, I have the same thing. For me, if I'm receiving that confirmation over and over that, oh yes, what you're doing is appreciated, what you're doing has an impact, you're doing something good in the world, then it's that pat on the back, like, okay, you're doing fine, you're doing your job, keep going, it's okay, you won the day already.
Yeah.
But we don't get that every day. Sometimes we do something that had an impact on someone, but it's not that bells and whistles, congrats. It's small things, right?
I know what I want my Incite homework to be.
Mm.
When somebody comes to mind who's inspired me or helped me in some way, to send them a message, like whether it's happening in real time or if, just, oh, in fact, I know a, a book review I need to write on Amazon. um, but that feels like a really fun energy to play in. And if I'm focused on putting that out, I bet I'll just feel better, one, and two, be more open to observing when things are coming back
Mm.
to me. I've actually been like kind of inundated with some really lovely messages in the last few days and able to take them in with so much joy as opposed to like the email this morning was a great contrast because the other like oh my gosh you rocked my world Megan messages I received this
Mm.
week I've been able to take in with total detachment to like did the thing they received match the thing I was I thought I was giving them.
I love that homework. I'm gonna get on it as well. Uh, Especially because not only the putting that out there, it's amazing. I feel like gratitude when we do it for ourselves is great, but when we do like involving others is even better. Uh, but also, um, as I was saying, that it's not we want the validation, but it's not always like that. How often do we share that as well? Like it's true, not everyone is always like sharing the well, how grateful they are, and they might even feel that, but save for the grave. And we get to do this in lifetime and not like just wait for when it's appropriate or when it's too late.
It makes such a big difference like small things like an email subscriber of mine hitting reply to a recent email and saying like this fired me up and inspired me to write a bunch thank you um
Yeah.
it makes such a big difference to energize and motivate and like keep going. I don't think okay, so this is really a good distinction for me to make. I don't think it's unhealthy for me to be fortified by those kinds of heartfelt responses because
That's another.
we are social animals, right? And there's something there's this discernment to have around am I outsourcing my joy dependent upon whether somebody approves of me or sends me a positive message? That certainly isn't a supportive state to
Yeah.
be in. Um, but let me not close down my joy and my receptivity to somebody letting me know that words I shared or action I took fucking rock their world.
Yeah. That's the main thing. We shouldn't be addicted to it, like need that
Mm,
to keep doing what we're doing, but allowing yourself to give as much attention to it as we give to the and probably more attention to it than what we give to the bad stuff.
yeah,
It's amazing. Like let that expand.
yeah. When you just said addiction, so many things popped, and I was thinking about what you were saying about the transition to stop eating sugar and processed foods first needs to be like an all or nothing because you're creating this identity. And I absolutely relate to that. I've done that around food where it's like, for me, it's too easy to like justify this if I'm like, well, I can have dessert on Tuesdays, right? And if I just say like dinner is it and then I don't eat after that and that's it, then I can stick to it and I can create that as a habit and a pattern. But the difference, the palpable difference between I feel addicted to something and I'm using my willpower not to do it versus, oh, I can be next to that and it's not triggering for me.
Yeah.
And we think about that a lot with substances and with food. Um, but let's open that conversation around addiction to negative thoughts, addiction to needing praise in order to feel like we're worthwhile. So that's how I'm seeing it. I'm like, oh, I can be around praise and just be neutral to it and be like, awesome, instead of going, I need your praise.
And even more than that, one thing that I loved about you bringing that up was that often the need for validation, like you were saying, gets like, oh, you shouldn't want that. And when, of course, we do want that, we do want to belong, we do want to know that we're doing something good. That is, that shouldn't be like, oh, be ashamed of
Yeah.
wanting that. Yet, I would say that it's not even that it doesn't trigger us, but allowing ourselves to enjoy it when it comes. One thing that changed for me when I stopped getting like triggered by someone eating sugar or something that I would want before, and I don't feel like I need at all right now, was that I allow myself now to eat something like this in only two cases. When there's no other option, because that's the meal in the place, and I'm not going to be the stubborn person that, oh, I don't eat that. I don't eat that unless it's
Mm-hmm.
something that it would kill me, which it is the case for some people when there's a bigger problem. For me, it's not, it's a choice. uh, I do allow myself to eat what's being served and enjoy, not just be like, oh, I have to eat that, because the negative feeling would make more bad. It would do worse than just me enjoying something that, yeah, I'm gonna eat today, but I'm not gonna eat for the rest of the year. And the other situation is where there's something that I actually really want, and I know that it's delicious and I want to try. And then in that case, I allow myself to have a small piece and fully enjoy every moment with it.
Mm.
So I feel like this is the case with the praise and the compliments, the gratitude. Instead of feeling like I have to deflect this because I can't want this. So like I just like, okay, thank you. Fully allowing ourselves to enjoy and be with it when we receive.
Mm. Oh my God, that feels so good. I feel like I'm standing under hot water, just like, ah, let me bask in that. Beautiful, beautiful. As so often happens, like in my Facebook feed the other day, I had two things that were like, oh, interesting, like kind of diametrically opposed next to one another. Um, and one was a meme that I think is probably like from a TV show or a movie, but I didn't get the reference. But it's a guy kind of like looking through slits, like he's a voyeur or something. And the text said like me eyeing those cookies in the pantry after I said I was gonna eat good or something like that. And then the other one was from a wellness coach I follow and really find inspiring, saying if you are I'll paraphrase poorly, but something like if you are making choices around food from your values, you don't have to be careful at all these holiday parties you're about to go to
Yeah.
because your yes and your no is based on what you actually desire. And I loved that message. It was profound. And it was like so funny to see these two things just you know juxtaposed because they really that first one, that meme really speaks to how we view so many things, um, from food to receiving praise. Like, oh, I know I'm being good. And people say this around food. No, I'm not going to have that. I'm being good. Versus the other perspective of like, oh, no, thank you. I'm not going to have that. I'm being true to what I want. And sometimes that is, yes, I'll have that because I'm being true to what I want.
Yeah. I I love that and you see how this is so tied with identity, as we were talking in the beginning,
Yeah.
because our values build our identity. If I'm making decisions based on my values, I'm being this making decisions based on who I am. And sometimes it takes rebuilding that identity, but it's coming closer and closer to what's true to us.
Mm. That feels very hopeful.
Hmm.
Great note to end on. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to going out and sending out messages of gratitude to everybody who pops to mind as they pop to mind. And maybe that's what I can replace my evening Instagram scrolling with is just sending people messages. Sending
It's a
everybody
good thing
emails.
to. Yes, I love that. Mm, yeah.
Well, let
Well,
us know in the comments. Are you going to do this Incite homework? Are you going to go spread some gratitude?
please spread some gratitude in this holiday season, and we'll see you next time in Incite Club.
Take care.
Take care.